Scene 1, The Shields of Corruption. A heavy metal bank vault door with the words Peer Review Strictly Confidential embossed in gold leaf. The camera moves inside to reveal a group of faceless silhouettes in suits behind a desk. Digital stamps of Privacy ACT and Confidentiality fly forward, stamping over glowing physical correction papers, turning them gray. Heavy sound of a vault locking, followed by a dramatic, ominous synthesizer chord. Who is privacy law actually designed to protect? In civilized society, privacy acts exist to shield vulnerable individuals from the crushing overreach of powerful institutions. But inside the secretive corridors of modern academic publishing, a grotesque inversion has occurred. This is an absolute fraud. They have weaponized privacy laws, which were meant to protect the weak, to build an impenetrable shield of immunity around the strong. They have turned a defensive human right into a corporate weapon of systemic censorship. Scene 2, The Weak Party's Right to Justice. An academic standing alone, holding a sheet of paper. As they try to show it to a public tribunal, hands from the shadows cover the paper, holding NDA and injunction papers. Below them, a scale shows a massive commercial publishing house on one side, and a single young scientist on the other. Fast mechanical clock ticking, growing louder with an urgent rhythmic pulse. Let's define the power dynamic in research. The journal is the corporate giant. The anonymous peer reviewer represents expert authority. The author is an individual, the weak party, often carrying zero administrative leverage. When that decision is scientifically invalid, when it deliberately stalls an innovative discovery to protect an elite citation cartel, and when it actively damages the author's fundamental interest, who is the victim? It is the author. If the victim of a bad decision holds the evidence of their own mistreatment, they have every ethical and physical right to disclose it. When the author voluntarily surrenders their own protection of privacy and chooses to put their case under the public gaze, no journal has the moral or legal authority to force them silent. Anonymity was granted to reviewers to let them speak honest truth without fear. It was never meant to be a backroom license to commit intellectual robbery, enforce biased gatekeeping, and write scientifically illiterate reviews with absolute impunity. If a reviewer writes rubbish, exposing their words is not defamation, it is an academic audit. Scene 3, The Pretext of Interest. A split screen. On the left, conflict of interest originally defined as a warning label over raw data. On the right, conflict of interest utilized as a giant concrete wall that blocks a paper titled Corrections of Errors in High-Impact Papers from passing into the printer. Sharp, metallic electronic clangs, symbolizing bureaucratic censorship. If the weaponization of privacy represents the shield, then the perversion of the conflict of interest has become the academic firewall. In a cynical maneuver, journals claim that publishing critical rebuttals that point out severe physical fallacies in their own previously published papers creates an administrative and financial conflict of interest. They argue that because correction letters challenge the correctness of their own brand and undermine their editorial metrics, the journal lacks neutral interest to host such debates. Thus, to evade reputational liability, they desk reject critiques before peer reviewers can even lay eyes on the logical mathematics. This is the ultimate corporate playbook, hiding behind ethics to shield themselves from empirical refutation. Scene 4, The Barren Wasteland of Correction. A digital conveyor belt pushing out piles of glossy, high-impact journal covers that dissolve into dust. Below them, a counter shows 95% of published papers contain fatal errors or zero conceptual value. Next to it, a small drawer labeled Errata and Rebuttal Letters is locked shut, covered in thick spider webs. Low, resonant, tragic wind howling. Go flip through any elite, high-impact materials science or biomedical journal today. What do you see? Thousands of pages of spectacular, polished data reports, yet virtually zero errata, critical notes, or letters to the editor. Many journals have quietly written explicit rules into their submission guidelines stating they simply do not consider letters to the editor or comments on published articles. Others, while pretending to have open feedback systems, construct an invisible runaround of delay, endless formatting demands, and anonymous desk rejection traps. Why? Because the article processing charge model depends on high volume and flawless public relations. To admit that a celebrated 50-year-old framework like the microwave absorption impedance matching theory is based on flawed electromagnetic boundary mathematics would invalidate thousands of papers they printed, disrupt the citation loops of their primary editorial board members, and threaten their impact factor currency. To protect the business, the editorial cartels choose to treat academic errors as private client secrets, maintaining their polished facade while printing synthetic waste. Scene 4.5: The Complicity of Preprint Archives. A digital server rack representing a famous preprint platform. Suddenly, a block labeled Erratum Letter 2 High Impact Journal is rejected by an automated filter. Text appears on screen: rejected, threat of reputational damage to original journal authors. A scale balancing critical feedback and reader judgment is locked in place, with a big red stamp censorship. Buzzing signal error sound, followed by a tense, rhythmic bass sequence. But the censorship doesn't stop at the journals. In a shocking twist of institutional alignment, even preprint platforms, the very archives created to bypass journal gatekeepers, have joined this protective web. This is an absolute logical absurdity. Pointing out physical and mathematical errors in a published journal article is a normal, fundamental academic debate. It belongs entirely to the healthy pursuit of raw physical truth. It has absolutely nothing to do with personal reputation or defamation. If the critic's arguments are scientifically wrong, they won't damage the original journal author's reputation. Why? Because the readers will easily see they are wrong, exposing the critic's own scientific incompetence. By using reputational protection as a screen to lock out unpeer-reviewed critiques, preprint channels are paralyzing the only remaining public arena for scientific audit. They have chosen to protect the reputation of incorrect studies over the preservation of invariant physical reality. Scene 5: Dismantling the Secret Cabals. Science is not a commercial trade secret industry. It is a public, global hunt for raw physical truth, governed by invariant logical laws. If peer review remains locked in dark backrooms, where anonymous reviewers write illiterate commands and journals hide their letters behind the shield of privacy, peer review is no longer a filter for quality. It is a syndicate of censorship. We must force open these chambers. We must demand: first, the absolute right of authors to publish all editorial correspondence, referee transcripts, and rejection logs on preprint servers. Second, the mandatory peer review of all rebuttal letters that present objective mathematical or physical challenges to previously published reports. Go read Dr. Yulu's original critical investigations on SSRN and preprints.org, free and linked in the description below. Let us stop treating our scientific heritage as corporate property. Let's shatter the golden silence, dismantle the secrets, and restore open, courageous, peer-reviewed logical truth. Thank you for watching.